right. I'm Audrey Henry, and I'm the Community Relations Director for the Lincoln County R3 School District. So basically that, my elevator pitch, if you will, is that I help connect the community to the classroom.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. So with that, what do your kind of responsibilities would you say fall on to you?
Sure. Communication is the biggest one. So when we communicate out with our families, if you're a family in the school district, you know about Parent Square, it's what we use. So managing that platform, making sure that our families are in the know of the things that they need to know, and stay up to date. Our community as well. We have a lot of people in our community that aren't necessarily connected directly to the school district through students anymore. And so I work to try to make sure that they know what's going on through our district website, social media platforms. We do a newsletter mailer twice a year. And so really just trying to make sure that our community understands all the really amazing things that are happening inside of our schools.
That's awesome. And I think there can be a true disconnect there in some areas. When I talk to people about Lincoln County and Troy and our community, when I talk to friends of mine that have martial arts schools or businesses outside the area, it's a disconnect for them, because if they're in a more of a metropolitan area or different things, there isn't that connection to community like we have with the school district. Mm-hmm. You know, a friend of mine and I were just talking, he's from Wildwood, and I was like, hey, what are some things you've done, you know? And it's a different, the whole school district set up, everything, it's so different. So what you guys do, you do a good job of it with connecting everyone to that. And I would think it's a very important part for a community to be in touch with their schools.
It really is. We are so blessed in our community because of all the support that we get. You know, when I try to describe our school to people that aren't in the community, we're a big district with a small town feel. You know, somebody calls you up on the phone and they're like, hey, it's Joe. And you're like, well, there's like 12 Joes that work here now. But they still, you know, they expect that you know them by their first name. And I hope that we don't ever lose that, because I think that really just gives so much relatability and so much opportunity for connection. To our community and internally as well. But the support that we get from our businesses, from our families, it's not like any other. And I went to school here, so I don't know anything different as far as that goes. But we have people that come as transplants from other districts as far as employees or as families, and they're like, it's just different. You know, the community here really just surrounds the schools, supports the schools, but people know, you know, who other people are too. It's a family. So it's a really cool feel. It's one of the things that I'm prideful of for our school district, and I hope that the rest of the community is too.
Well, and I think they are. And it's something that I noticed with my martial arts school. You know, I originally was in Wentzville, but when we moved in 2 locations and we ended up settling out here, when I would have people that were part of the district, whether they were teachers or paras, whatever their position was, like their connection to so many people and knew so many of the kids. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing how that structure is. Mm-hmm. For the fact there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of growth going. I follow the pages, I see new people hired all the time, new expansion. Mm-hmm. Maintaining that feel when you grow big is hard. It was a struggle I had with the martial arts school. It's a struggle I think every business goes through. Mm-hmm. And maintaining that, and the way you see the staff out in the community and the way they connect with everyone. They're here, they live here, they teach here, they grow here. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, it is. I have children in the district as well, and seeing the connections that they make with their teachers, and you know, we've had teachers show up at their evening sporting events, not even connected to the school. You know, they're in the Corey League or whatever, and their teachers will come. And so, just being able to make those connections in the community too, and you know, really having those solid relationships with students is second to none. I mean, there's so much research behind the power of those connections and those relationships that engages students. And I think that you can see how well those work when you look at things like our graduation rate. Our graduation rate is, you know, in the like 98, 99%.
Wow.
And it has been for years, because our community surrounds our kids, and our teachers know our kids, and they build relationships. And so I think that's something that is really special, and I hope we never lose that too.
It is. It's very, very special. And the way the staff connects with the kids. I had a student training at the school. He had been to one class teenager, but he wore his gear to school. And the other teens in class were like, hey, bud, you know, look a little silly in old tie shorts. But he had something happen. The counselor mentioned to the parent, said, hey, I saw him in a Boyer shirt. Parent agreed, signed stuff so they could contact me to talk about working with them to help him. He'd only been to one class. I was really thrown off at first. I'm like, who? yeah, he was in last Wednesday with one of his friends. But because the staff picked up on the fact of who he was with, what he was doing, talked to the parent, got their permission, then we were able to work together and help the kid out. And it was just needing him in class more, needing to get some of that energy out. But you're not going to find that other places. You're not going to find that connection with the community. You know, every single event that I've ever been to, somebody from the district's there. Normally you, at most of them. But there's always that connection, groundbreaking. You know, whatever it is that's going on, the district is involved. That I can't imagine doing it a different way, but I believe there's probably a lot of areas that do.
I would hope so. I would hope that they do. And it's, like you said, so much of it is the credit to our community too, because we know we have those resources that we can reach out to. You know, do we reach every single child? I wish we could say yes, but no. You know, people are always astonished when we say we have 14 schools and over 7,100 students. Yeah. It's so big, you know, especially when it feels like such a small town. And so there are going to be some that we maybe can't make a connection with, unfortunately. But for the ones that we do and for the work that goes into it, the connection with the community is such a huge piece of it. Because if they couldn't have reached out to you, then that kiddo might not have had that connection, you know. And so just trying to find those continued partnerships, continue to celebrate the ones that we have is so huge. And I've said it multiple times already, but we couldn't do it without it, you know, without those community supports. And I think that's something that is maybe harder to find in some of the bigger districts, or in other places. I'm not saying just bigger districts, but because the community cares so much and the support comes, and we can do so much more.
Well, and I've talked about it a lot on this podcast with people that the community does care and the community notices. I can't tell you how many people are like, when people come into Taekwondo school, they don't come in, they're like, you know, we heard you train world champions. We heard you got the best sidekicks. They're like, we've always wanted to come here because of the support in the community, the things you do. And when I realized that, like, I didn't do that initially. It was just what I seen other big companies do. There are so many big, small businesses that are much bigger than me. When I say big business, I don't mean like Coca-Cola, but well, Toyota's a big one. Like, you have big ones that do give back and do so much. I just followed their lead. But then when people were like, yeah, we want to support that, I realized there was something different out here in the fact that they want to be a part of that. But it's a big part of it, I think, too, is the fact you guys as the school district are such an integrated part and are at all the events and are part of everything that's going on. That makes a difference, because if you guys were just inside your doors and then going, well, hey, why does no one ever kind of help out? Well, it's twofold.
That's one of the things that I think is important too in my role specifically. I really enjoy going out and making connections with our community members and with our sponsors and the people that support our kids, because like you said, if we're not supporting them, then why should they support us? And so I think it's very much two-way. And so many of our staff, this is my home too. You know, I want that for our schools. I want that for our businesses. I want everyone to thrive, you know. And so I think that's a big piece of it too, is that so many of our employees, this is home for them. And so they want success all the way around too.
Well, I think you hear about that too. A lot of people, there's a lot of transplants. I was from O'Fallon. I meet a lot of people that grew up in North County that are kind of transplanted out here, but there also are a lot of people that this is it. This is where they've been. And they take a lot of pride in that and taking care of the area. And it's always fun to talk to them, hear different stories about the community over the years, but they take pride in that. But people forget too how big the school district is. I didn't realize it until the first time we took donuts out for all the teachers. I think it was donuts we did. And I was like, how many schools?
Yeah.
And then we still ended up missing, I think the first year we missed early childhood. Like, we missed a couple. I was like, wow, that's bigger than I thought. And that's not even with, I mean, the other surrounding school districts that are pretty close by with us out here, that you just kind of forget how big of an area we really are. I know when people look at with Boyer Academy, they look at it and they pull up just like Troy demographics. They'll call me, hey man, what are you doing? Like why are you I'm like, no, type in Lincoln County. And they're like, oh, okay, now it makes more sense. I'm like, it's a big, small area. It's like, it's the only way I could think of to describe it. That's how a lot of people have been on the podcast have described it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's I think in my signature line, one of the things that our tagline is proud to be R3, our hashtag that we use. And so in my signature line, I think I have something to the effect of, I'm proud to be R3 because we have big district opportunities with a small town feel.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
And so
that sums it up.
It does. And I think that's something that's so fantastic. If you look at the programming that we have for some of our students, we just had our Leadership Troy group come through in November, and some of the feedback that they gave were like, I didn't know we had these opportunities for our kids that were already taking place. We have apprenticeships that are going on right now with construction and teaching. We're getting ready to start 2 new fields, one in IT then one in automotive, also mechanic.
That's great.
And these kids are getting the opportunity to go out and have a paid internship during their school day, to where when they are ready to graduate, they already have these skills. They've done the internship, and then they can either go on to college, they can go on to technical school, whatever it is that's best for them afterwards. But they are already getting that hands-on experience. And I think that's something that a lot of times, really, our folks don't know, our community doesn't know that those are the opportunities we're providing for kids. And so it's so cool to be able to offer those opportunities. Even though we're still considered a fairly rural district. Yeah,
when Dr. Penny was on last year, we broke down some of that stuff, and I just really don't think people realize how much like actual application the school district's doing. It's not, you guys aren't just pushing them to go to a 4-year college. You guys are providing actual hands-on opportunities. I've went in with the construction tech class for painting. I was there at different meetings you guys have had, that there's not a lot of places doing that. And bringing that stuff in for the students to show them some real world opportunities. And there's so many great businesses in the community, Flynn, TriTech, just different ones that are wanting to help out and are showing interest in these kids' futures. I go to New Horizons a lot, and the opportunities those kids have, it's such an amazing school. I spoke over there a couple weeks ago, and I told the kids, I was like, when I first got invited over here, I was like, well, this is going to be the bad kids. To be the kids that fight, because that's what, when they first opened the one in Zumwalt, that's a lot of my friends that went there, was because they were getting in fights all the time. And I told them, I was like, and you guys really changed my opinion at it. It's amazing at the opportunities that are being offered and the way they're being, like, the school district, it shows that you guys care and want them to graduate and want them to succeed. It's not like, well, let's just shove you guys over here and get you out of the way. Like, there's so many amazing opportunities there.
Absolutely.
What brought you into this field? Like, you've grown up here. What was it that kind of directed you this way? Did you always want that?
Well, my degree, my undergrad and my master's are both in marketing and business. And I worked at an ad agency for about 5 years. And an opportunity came up to join the team here, and I capitalized on that. Looked a little bit different for us at the time, but both of my parents were educators. And so I always tease them that, they're like, don't be a teacher. And so I always tease them and tell them, I got as close to education as I could without being a teacher.
There you go.
But I think both of my dad was in marketing as well, and my mom and my stepdad were in education. And so I kind of blended both of their passions in what I do. And yeah, I really fell in love with working with the school district right away, just being able to be around students and seeing the amazing things that they do, but also the adults that care so much about kiddos. And at the time, I was getting ready to have my first, and so it was really neat to be able to be in a family that understood what it was like to build a family and that cared about kids. So,
well, and I would think with a marketing degree, you could easily become just a number on a spreadsheet at a big company, pushing out advertising. I would think that working for the R3 would be just much more of a rewarding position, still using your knowledge.
Absolutely.
I would think that would be such a big game changer. Especially, there's so many people that kind of went that way with their education too. When I was younger, I knew so many people that were going to go into different things, and it was becoming a very hot field with the internet and with so much stuff that was going on. but then to find something that's rewarding too, and a way to use that is amazing.
It's so rewarding. And that's one of the things that I love so much is like, if I'm having a bad day for whatever reason, I can go sit in a pre-K classroom and I can get a hug. I can get told I'm pretty, and then all of a sudden my day is fantastic. And I get to take some really great pictures and show the rest of the community the great things that I'm seeing just from sitting in a classroom and seeing the love that those kids are getting from their teacher.
That's awesome.
And boom, your bad day's gone.
Brett, my buddy Brett was just on a podcast. We were just talking about that with our little ones. Because it's almost Christmas break, and I had to stop my 5 to 7-year-old class last night. I'm like, all right, guys, I finally had to negotiate with the little terrorist. I'm like, listen, I need 4 more minutes of class. We're gonna end 10 minutes early, but I need 4 more minutes because everything we did, they were.
Yep.
And, I was like, 4 more minutes. And we wrapped up the class. I'm like, what are your guys' goals say? And the one, Axel just went right into, this is my goal. And just want to do something because, I love you so much. And he always manages to wrap our mat chat at the end with something. And I was telling Brad, I'm like, you can't have a bad day. I kind of would have said I was having a bad day that day. But when you sit down with those kids, it's like, you just can't.
No,
you can't. It's so rewarding. And like you said, you could see the way they tell you you're pretty, they tell you you're great. If I'm feeling like my kicks are a little rough, I can kick the bag and the kids all, and I'm like, yeah, kicks are good. My teen black belts are like, oh, here we go. They mess with me. But it's a very rewarding thing where I could see that career path not having a lot of opportunities like that.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's different every day too. So, I handle everything from crisis communications to designing a billboard, and so having such a wide variety of things keeps it fresh and exciting. And
wow, you would wear a lot of hats then, huh? That's a very wide variety.
It is. Yeah, there's a lot of things, from day to day. I always have a to-do list, but whether or not I'm going to get to it is it's questionable. So a lot of things to do. It's me, and then I have an assistant in my department. So we do cover quite a bit of ground, but
wow,
it's exciting and stays fresh.
That's awesome. And yeah, it would be a very wide variety then, which would be another part that would be fun is not just getting the same thing.
Absolutely.
I find that with paint jobs, people are like, oh, I want my room gray again. I'm like, ugh. If someone calls me something wild, I'm like, really? You got my interest. That's different. I haven't done that this week.
Yeah.
So I could see that completely. What are, what are some passions you have with this or goals you have within your position to create opportunities or to help grow the district?
That's a good question.
Kind of a bland question. Well, it didn't come out exactly how I thought, but yeah.
The things that we're always thinking of. So one of the things that I think is a challenge and an opportunity is because we are such a big district, we can't always do things the way that they've always been done.
Yeah.
So when I was in school here, everybody was on the main campus there at Main Street and College. It was all right there.
Okay.
And now we're across the county, right? And so just putting some procedures and policies in place that help to make sure we're keeping our students and staff safe. It sounds so mundane, but I know that it's good work for our students and our staff. Something as simple as helping a committee decide what a travel guidelines look like. So if we're looking at sending our kids out of town for whatever reason, what do those guidelines look like, and making sure that we're keeping our students and staff safe. But also looking at advertising and sponsorship opportunities. So kind of like we talked about earlier, the symbiotic relationship between the two, the community and the school, making sure that, the dollars that are coming in from those sponsorships and the advertising are also giving our community some support in some way too. So that's something I've been looking at for a while and trying to continue to make that more comprehensive and easier for our community partners to take in. So that's something that continue to work with. My goal someday is hopefully to have kind of a menu, if you will, for our business partners to be able to look at twice a year whenever your budget comes due, to be like, okay, I want to support this athletics team, this robotics team.
Yeah.
I want to do this billboard. Have it to where it's just easier, and we're not knocking on doors quite as much as we are, because we also know that gets old when you come with your hands out.
It depends on how people do it. I try to tell people when they're looking for sponsorships or they have a program or whatever, I try to always give them advice on ways to approach business owners with it, because so many people approach it wrong. But like you said, having something where there's a menu like that, I'll get DMs all the time. We'll do, I don't even know, this year we did, I lost count of how many 5Ks or different things at the elementary schools we did. People would stop me. I'd be like, yes, just message me so I don't forget. Yes, you want my logo on kids' t-shirts? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, just remind me so I do it. But then I would run into multiple other businesses who are like, dude, share the love. Let me know. I'm like, I barely have time to remember it myself. So having a menu to where it was organized to where a business that wanted to do it, because I meet a lot of people that want to do more, but they don't, maybe their business keeps them trapped. Keeps them at the business more to where they don't have the opportunities where I've got Casey and she's out doing different things. And, I've got, with me teaching kids, I have a lot of teachers that come and go through the school, or Carrie Aldred, as a counselor, or secretary for counselors, I believe. She's one of my black belts, one of my assistant instructors that's there at the school. Like, I have a lot of connections that way to where I hear about stuff. I just have to remember to, like, DM me, because pat me on the back and tell me at church on Saturday, I'm going to forget.
Right.
But I meet a lot of people that are wanting more opportunities. I'm like, well, it kind of builds. Like, when people start finding out you're interested, you start getting more calls. I've been trying to remember to share that when I do get someone reaches out. I'm like, okay, who was it wanted me to message them? So if you had a system in place, that would be huge.
Yeah, it'll take some time to get there, because too, we only have a certain size pool to pull from, right? And so we want to be mindful of that, but also in connection with the opportunities that we talked about earlier too, because we have more and more opportunities coming to light for kids, there's more things to support, and so that doesn't mean our pool gets bigger. It just means we have more opportunities to support students. And so just making sure that all of our students and all of the different interests that they have are being supported, or have the opportunity to be supported through those types of sponsorships and things as well, is something that is important to me. And so I want to work towards getting to where it's easier on our business owners, and all of our kids are feeling the love.
Yeah. Well, and I just don't think sometimes people realize needs within the district or opportunities for them as a business owner to support. I think sometimes that zips by. I was lucky because, like I said, with what I do with the kids, like teachers would be like, hey, you want to do this? What's that? What is that? And they'd break it down. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. I was like, I had no clue. I seen it. I had no clue. Didn't know what it was. They're like, oh yeah, cool. Great. The leadership, we've sponsored that. There's different things that I'm like, that's really neat. I love that. But I don't think people always put the effort in to learn about it. And I know since we, this year we moved Ben and Jocelyn over to the public school system, which I didn't have them in it because of any issues I had with the school system. I chose Sacred Heart because it was smaller. When we moved them over, I was amazed at how easy it was, how well everything was taken care of. Because I was really worried. Ben was 6th grade, and I knew he was going from one hallway to an entire middle school. And I was like, ooh, do I want to do that? Like, I kind of freaked out a little bit. I'm like, all right, normally I'm one of those older, my kids can handle it. But I was like, I remember middle school, that was a big deal. I still remember what I wore on the first day of middle school. I remember that was a hype, that was a big thing. We went from 5th grade to we were now 6th graders. That was a big jump. And I was super concerned with it, and the ease of the transition and the way the staff took care of it. And then the overwhelming amount of people I actually knew at the school, like, it was great. I mean, they didn't miss a beat. They absolutely loved it. And the support that we got, Jocelyn's at Quiver Park, was just amazing from both schools and the staff, and just absolutely not a single bad thing to say about it. It was an amazing, like you said, it's a big district, but it was such a small town feel to doing it. It was wild. I was expecting it to be much more of an effort, and it was such an easy transition. It was great. Good.
I'm so glad to hear that, because it's, it is scary to move your kids, and for your kids too. And even just transitioning from one building to another, like you said, going from elementary to middle school, whether you've been in the district or not, is a big change. Our middle schools are big. And in fact, that's probably one of the next areas after we address growth needs in our 9 through 12 that we would probably have to look at. Both of our middle schools have about 750 students in them, which is a big middle school.
Yeah.
And so it is a big transition. So I'm so glad to hear that it went well. So
I was really worried, especially because it's an older building. I've been through the building. There's downstairs. You got some hallway. You got some different things. I was like, all right, buddy, like you're going, like this is he was stoked. He's like, no, I got this. And he did. Awesome. He did great. The staff helped. Everybody has been so supportive because I was just worried about it. I remember that was like a big thing because I went to school in O'Fallon. North Middle School was right there off the highway. We seen it. It was a really hype thing. They merged 2 elementary schools at that time, so we were getting to, there was new people. For some of us, I've got a lot of friends that we went to preschool at the local Baptist church. We went to all the elementary schools together, but middle school was like, we can look back. And that's when that was when we met new friends. That was when more people joined up, that we all were under the same roof. It was a big thing. I remember being a little like, whoo, do I want to do this? And Carrie and different ones were like, knock it off. You'll be fine. And it was a great transition period. Something I find too that people don't understand is the 9th grade center. Like the plans for it later, that will be a second high school, correct?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. We've been talking for years about a second high school. So when that was originally built, the plan was for that to be a second high school. And I think sometimes what people don't know was that as soon as that opened, we hit the recession.
Yes.
So like 2008, and our enrollment just flatlined for like 10 years.
Well, yeah, they quit. I worked for a couple builders that were out here painting, and they literally just boop, dropped hammers. That was it. Yeah.
So making sure that we were fiscally responsible is always top priority. And so it didn't make sense at that time to look at building that. So then we wound up, 10 years later, 2018-ish, we started to see some population growth again. And now here we are in 2024 and looking at what that expansion is going to look like. Having all of the things that we've talked about so far in this conversation about a small town feel, having so much community support, will look vastly different with the second high school, just because we'd be splitting a lot of those programs in half.
Oh, for sure.
Doubling the cost of a lot of things. And so our Board of Education has worked really hard, and we've had a long-range planning committee that has been meeting with community members and teachers and people from around the community, talking about what that might look like. And it looks like right now it will not be a second high school this time just yet.
Yeah.
But we're hoping to make put something on the ballot, in April of 2025 that would allow us to expand the 9th grade center.
Nice.
To give us more space, and then also do some renovations at the high school so we can take that first step towards getting to the second high school. We will get there.
Oh, for sure.
We will. But right now we wouldn't be able to fully build out the 9th grade center complex to be apples to apples with Troy Buchanan without asking our taxpayers for an increase.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't want to do that. And our taxpayers don't want us to do that either. And so trying to find a way that we can move towards that need, satisfy the need for the additional space for our students without asking for a tax levy increase. And so hoping in April to have that on the ballot to where we can expand that building.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've noticed over the years being out here, I had asked, or I've been at a meeting where it was brought up, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why? Because first time I've been over there, I'm like, well, this is very odd. Like, why do we have a 9th grade? Why, I didn't understand it. And I found a lot of people don't. A lot of people just don't. They're like, oh, it just is what it is. It's like, well, it's going to be like a full high school one day. They're like, same thing I did. Oh, that makes a lot of sense with the layout and the design of just the whole campus, the way it's set up. So that's something to look forward to. That would be awesome.
It is. We have a lot of people that give us feedback too that they really love that model. It gives our freshman students an opportunity to kind of transition. So once we start to move in the other direction, what we're looking at with this ask from our voters would be an expansion, like I said, at the ninth grade center. We would look at renaming that campus to something like Troy South. It would be a second campus for Troy Buchanan is really what it would be. And so it wouldn't just be ninth grade students there anymore. We would start to see students move back and forth between the buildings more than they already do now. Some already do for different programs. But looking at opportunities for specific programming and how we can build space for that. So kind of back to the opportunities that we provide. Just as an example, one of the things that we provide is a really robust engineering and STEM robotics program at the high school. And it just requires so much space for that type of instruction.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. So the robotics team has and I'm going to botch this, so don't hold me to the wording, but a tournament platform or a arena, if you will. And just that takes up almost their entire classroom.
Oh, I bet.
And so having the facility space built to meet programming needs like that is going to be huge, because we don't do high school the way you and I knew high school.
No.
You don't sit and get in rows and listen to a lecture. They're hands-on. They're really immersing themselves within these programs. And so having the space for that is really, really critical. And that's what this would really allow us to do too.
Well, and they won state last year, right? They won something big last year, I believe.
They went to national, or I think they're called Worlds in robotics.
Okay.
Yep. And they did a really amazing job. We actually have two different robotics programs now at the high school. One's called VEX and one's called FIRST. I can't get into the specifics beyond that. I would have to turn you over to the expert at the high school. But the things that they do just blow my mind. There's no way I could ever
Oh, no, it's really cool, because
that.
I know when we first launched the podcast last year, because we're coming up on 1 year, someone had reached out about having them on. And Joey, we at that time, this room wasn't here, and the other room in there, which I'll show you when we're done, where the LED wall is, everything was structured. It was that room, and the rest of this wasn't all built out. There was a lot of this has kind of evolved since then. So I was like, I don't think we can do that yet. But it was something that I was really excited about, because I was like, that was one of the first things that was like bigger around the community. It reached out, was like, hey, we'd like to come on and talk. I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool. As we build out and grow, we just do, because I think I've had 7 on. I had my comp team on, and that was even kind of a struggle to do a podcast with a bigger group like that. But I've seen the stuff with robotics. I have friends of mine that do it out of state, or their kids compete with it. Like it requires a lot.
It does.
With building that out.
And those kids will blow your mind. You should definitely have them on. They're way more entertaining than I am. Yeah. I can tell you that. I love having conversations with kids. Like I said, I mean, I do love sitting in a pre-K classroom, but I also love having a conversation with our older kids.
Yes.
So things that and I'm sure you experience this at your school too. Yeah. Just the things that they think about and the ideas that they have are so inspiring, and it makes me excited to see them be leaders.
Well, I've talked to my teens at the school, and I've told them, I was like, there's being a business owner and hiring and dealing with stuff, there is if you look at social media, people, them young people, blah, 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 this generation, that generation, they kind of talk down on them. And even as a business owner, I've struggled with certain age groups. But I'll tell you what, the age group that's coming up out of school now is not the same as, anyone listening, sorry, but the 25-year-olds out there right now. Like, there is definitely a different attitude coming up out of these kids. They are so bright. My one instructor is Kendall Mosier. She's president. Is it the DECA regional president this year, I believe. Vice president last year. I went out to Kansas City and judged at DECA there. All those kids, like, that was so cool to talk to them. They'd come up with their business plans, and I had really good conversations with a few. There is a new generation coming up that is inspiring. When I talk to these kids, and I'll go in and discuss real world things at work. Like, hey, I had some guys do this, or I had an employee with this problem. What do you guys think? And the responses they'll come back with, I'm like, okay, we're safe. The world's not going to end. Like, if you watch stuff that's out there, sometimes you would be worried. But if you really talk to them, there's a different thought process. The what is being pushed out there sometimes about the younger generation, and all they say is, these Gen Alpha lingo, and I'm not going to say them because God forbid one of my teens would watch it, not hear about it. But they get that rep of that's what they're all just running around doing, and they're not. They're so bright and they're so hungry to get out there and work. It's not this lazy atmosphere, this lazy attitude that people talk about. There is a real group coming up out of these schools, and it's amazing. And I get to see them with what I do with you guys and talking to them at the different, I've talked Ninth Grade Center, New Horizons. It's inspiring what's coming out.
Oh, absolutely. I sat down at a Thanksgiving event out at Hawk Point right before Thanksgiving and I don't know what grade he was in. He was 4th or 5th grade. And some of the facts that he was spilling out to me just at the Thanksgiving, we're sitting there sharing some turkey. And I was like, okay, like I just learned a whole lot in the 30 minutes that I've been sitting here, and I don't even know that it was something I needed to know, but now I do, and kudos to you.
Yeah.
So it's always inspiring to hear what they have to say, and I agree. You know, it's easy to speak negatively about a group that's different in any setting, right? And different in any way, and so I think they all have their strengths, and we definitely have some kiddos that are going to change the world. We
do. It's I tell the teens at school all the time, I'm like, you guys get lumped in with the negative of the 25 somethings, you know, and I've had a lot of them come through the painting company that was like, you just, and I'm not lumping everybody together, but I have had bad run-ins with some, but then when you meet the younger ones now, it's like, this isn't that. There's a lot of them coming out that they want to go to work. They want, when I'm at New Horizons talking to some of them with Dr. White, like, they're ready, they're hungry, they want to get out there and have that job. They want to do something. They don't want to be YouTubers. Like, when I go talk to these kids, everybody's like, oh, he's younger, they just want to be a YouTuber or a TikToker or whatever. I have not had any of them tell me that. They want to be mechanics and carpenters, and I feel like a lot of the trades, especially with how dedicated Troy R3 has been to promoting the trades and stuff. I feel like there is a generation coming out that wants to work with their hands. They want to have a job. They don't want to work in a cubicle behind a computer. They're not, I would say 1 in 10 maybe says something about designing a video game or something. That's not really what they want. No, it's been interesting to be in education. This is my 14th year in the school district, and to see even the changes that we've had in that time period, but more so from, when I was in school, you went to college, like that was what your expectation was. That's what they told all of us. And that's not right for everyone. And I think that our district has done so much to really try and help students as early as middle school, or even younger sometimes, but intentionally in middle school for sure, and in the freshman center, to find what they're passionate about and what they enjoy, what they're good at, and then try to start moving them towards that career pathway in the studies that they're doing. And so that is something that, if you look at our scheduling on our website, there are career pathways. And so if I'm interested in becoming a painter or a veterinarian or a communication specialist, then I can find different courses that are going to start to lead me into that. And if I don't like it, then I'm like, okay, that's when I can check off my list. And now maybe I move over to this career pathway. But really focusing on whatever's next for that student, whether they're going directly into the career workforce, if they're going into the military, if they're going into college and that's what they want to do, then great. But finding out what the kids are best suited for has been something that they've been very, very intentional about in our schools for the last several years. And I think that it shows, because we have kids that are coming out ready to work. Yes. We have students that have already marked off some of the things, like, that's not for me, and this is where I want to be. And so I think that really, like you said, really does show now that they're ready to move on to that next step. And it's not just, okay, I'm going to go to college for a semester, realize it's not for me, and then go figure it out. Hopefully they're figuring that out more in high school. Yeah. So they can graduate and be career ready. No, and I think that's where the system went wrong for a while, and it's not doing that anymore. Like, I go to New Horizons and talk about resumes, or I talk to kids about job interviews. Hey, why you got your earbuds in? There's a job. That real world training, we never had that. Like, no one come in, like, they would, I feel like we did a workshop on, like, a worksheet, maybe on, shake hands, make eye contact, take initiative, show up on time, the basics out of an HR handbook. But the school district works well by bringing in the businesses and bringing in business owners that could say, listen, here's what I want. I want to know, like, what do you want? What are you going to do? What are you good at? Like, they're helping set them up truly for success, not pushing them off. I know I put up a video yesterday, and after I went back and watched it, I'm like, oh man, that sounded like I was anti-school or anti-school district. And I kind of went and put a comment under it because I was getting at, I see parents freak out over a kid being on honor roll, or they hound their kids about stuff. And I try to take time to teach my kids basic lessons. Like when we went to Vegas recently, I was like, we rent a Porsche for the day. And I was like, this is what your YouTuber does. He rents Lamborghini for $500 that day. I was like, we can rent one of the mansions for $2,000 a day. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. And then we can go take pictures. They're like, let's do it. I'm like, no, I didn't say we're doing it. I'm saying that's what your favorite little YouTuber guy does. Like, he doesn't really own, like, teaching the kids those real world skills is so important. And I think it's great how you guys bring in people to do that in the high school and get these kids ready to go into the world, not ready to go to college.
Right.
Because so many of them aren't going there. Like I told kids at Ninth Grade Center or at New Horizons, like, I'm not going to talk to you guys about, hey, you need to get ready for college, because obviously you're not a huge fan of school. I wasn't either. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to work. I wanted to get to work, and I wanted to make money and build a career. So let's talk about what you're going to do that. And the school district supports that. And I don't ever hear of other districts supporting, actually helping the kids succeed, wanting to see them succeed. That's not what everybody does.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. I do think it's so important that we focus on what the kids want to do. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. Yeah. It doesn't work. If you get it in there, it doesn't stay, right? And so it's just so important to really hone in on that. And I do think that's a big change that we've seen in the last several years. And it's important too that we take time to listen to our business owners, and that's something that we've been really intentional about too. And hopefully our business owners feel that, because we want to know, what is it that you need from us? Like, our job is to produce a workforce, and whether they go to college first or not, or go straight into the workforce, that's what our job is at the end of the day. And so hearing from you all what it is that you need in an employee, and then going back and figuring out how we can teach that. One example, we had a student that went on to be in the operators union, I believe. And in order to do that, they have to take some sort of a math test, and they're not allowed to use a calculator, something to that effect. Okay. And so we heard that this particular student that had done that struggled because the way that we were teaching that particular form of mathematics or something, that skill, the skill that they needed for that, we weren't meeting that standard. And so we internalized that, took that back to our team, and they made changes so that we can continue to serve our students so they can be successful in that, And so hearing those things and taking it back into how we can better serve the businesses and the work where we're creating that workforce for is really important as well.
Well, and you're putting the student first. You're not putting a statistic first of, well, this many kids went to college. You're putting the student first. Yes, you have a great graduation number, but you're getting that because you're putting that student first and their needs and what are they wanting and what is the community wanting? Because you've got a blue collar community that it needs people to come and work. That's huge. So is there any big things coming for the school district? Anything you guys are, you want to share for next year? Anything coming up?
The biggest thing is the bond issue. It's a no tax levy increase, so we would not be asking to raise the levy, and that'll be on the April ballot, and that will be to do the expansion at the
Awesome.
Ninth Grade Center and renovations at the high school as well. Also on that though, when we do bond issues like these, we look at the whole district and say, okay, what is it that our district needs as a whole? Like we've talked about plenty of times, it's a big district. There's a lot of things. We have 14 school buildings and so many programs to support. And so what is it that we need to do to support? One of the other things that we're looking at for this particular one is Hawk Point Elementary School. Right now, that school is not able, because of the size of it, is not able to serve special needs students.
Oh, okay.
So they come from that community into another school where they can be served. And so looking at actually expanding that building, adding an additional piece. Part of the building codes in our community requires if we add on to a building in any way, if they don't already have a tornado safe room, we have to put a safe. Yep. So I would also include a tornado safe room for that location, which doesn't have at this time.
Well, they would need that out there too. There's not a lot out there.
There's not.
That'd be a really good addition.
Yes, and in fact, a lot of people don't even know that Hawk Point is part of our district. Sometimes when you talk to them, they're like, "Oh, that's part of your school." You're like, yes, it is. So, and then another piece of that too, in all of our schools, we work really hard on safety, and I'm sure you've seen those pieces, and we talk a lot about safety for our students. We know that is, at the end of the day, that's the top priority. Of course, we want to educate them, but we want them to be safe. Yeah. And so one of the things that Hawk Point Elementary does not have is a secure vestibule for when people come into the building. Yep. And so looking at adding that as well. So some changes out of Hawk Point, the secondary 9 through 12 expansion, and then also looking at acquiring some additional land, because when we built Troy South Elementary School, that was the last piece of land that the district had that we could build a building on. And so as we continue to grow, and we talked about maybe needing a middle school at some point, we'll need land to put it on. So looking at funding for that to be able to acquire some land. And then, of course, just like owning a house or a business or anything else, we have roofs that we have to upkeep. We have asphalt that we have to look at. Just different things. HVAC is another one, HVAC and lighting. It doesn't last forever.
No.
And we discussed ninth grade center being built in 2008. And so the HVAC at that particular location has reached the end of its useful life, and we need to replace that. So
if you think your HVAC's expensive in your house, imagine at a full school. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. And when those numbers get thrown out, I'm always like, choke a little bit.
Yeah. No, I could only imagine that being like, wow, that's a lot of zeros.
It is a lot of zeros. So hopefully, that's a long list of things, and then of course some other security and technology improvements that we would be looking at too. And so we'll be reaching out to our voters in April to help us pass that. But that's the biggest thing, of course. Our students are always doing really great things throughout the year. So if you're bored, I'm sorry. I don't look at our calendar. You can find something to come see.
There's always something going on.
There's athletics. There's performing arts.
And I feel like the community supports those really well.
They do.
I really do. I feel like, my kids went up to a football game there. We don't have a kid that goes to high school, plays football. Yeah. Casey's like, hey, we're going to go up there and watch that because I had private lessons all night. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, well, that's really weird. I'm like, well, not really. It's just, not something I would have chose to do. But they went up and had a blast.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I know our high school just had Descendants. They had 3 shows for the musical, and they were almost completely sold out.
Wow.
And our Performing Arts Center holds 800 people. Yeah. So 3 shows with 800 people it's a testament to the talent that we have in our schools. So yeah, awesome. Absolutely always fun things going on. You can find all that on our district website.
And if somebody wanted to reach out and support any of the programs or reach out to you for any opportunities, how would they do that? Yeah,
they can find my information on the website. If they reach out through the district's Facebook page, I'm the one that they're talking to on there.
Awesome.
And then they can always email me or call the school district, and that contact information is on our district website as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. And I always appreciate when people from the district come on to chat about everything that's going and really educate the community on all the great things we have.
Yeah, and if anybody ever wants to come into our schools, I'd be happy to set up a tour too. I think that's, getting in and seeing the things is a totally different experience than just hearing about it or seeing a written article about it. And so we're always open to answer questions. And if you have a question, you can call central office, and we're happy to answer those questions. Anybody there would be happy to direct you to who can get you the best answer.
I didn't think about that because I go to so many of them. But when you said the different things about Hawk Point, it's like, oh yeah, I can see that now. I didn't, because that's a very old school.
Yes, it was actually a work project in the 40s as part of the government trying
no way I wouldn't have thought it was that old. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is very old, but that's a testament to our facilities team too. They keep our buildings in beautiful shape.
I would not have guessed that age at all. I just know from being in there, I've been out there for students lunch. I've been out there work with the kids before, and it's a totally different layout. I remember I walked in the door, I'm like,
Sure, from the additions and things, yeah.
Yeah, well, just walking in the front, like when you come through the front, it's so different. Like you said, no vestibule, so it's different than I'm used to the other schools. I was like, They're like, yeah, come here. I'm like, okay, wow, okay, didn't expect that. So but I would not have thought it was that old. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's the second oldest building in our district. Bonfils is the oldest, our auditorium. But yep, it is old. But I think offering some additional services to those students out there would be great. But yeah, again, if anybody has questions or wants to just talk about something or has, maybe a perception on something that they're not sure is correct or they've heard something, just reach out and we're happy to share and give you the information that we have.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys.